A chemical equation is a written symbolic representation of a chemical reaction. The symbols are the elemental letter or letters representing that element. The reactant chemicals are given on the left-hand side and the product chemicals on the right-hand side. The two are connected with an arrow leading from the left to the right, symbolizing the reaction. The law of conservation of mass states that no atoms can be created or destroyed in a chemical reaction, so the number of atoms that are present in the reactant has to balance the number of atoms that are present in the product. To balance a chemical equation, first I will write out the given formula, S8 plus O2 equals SO2, with the reactants on the left of the arrow and the product on the right. Equation should look something like S8 plus O2 equals SO2. Count the numbers of each atoms in each element on each side of the equation and list them under that side. For the equation S8 plus O2 equals SO2, there are 8 sodium atoms being added to 2 oxygen atoms on the left, so I would write S equals 8 and O equals 2. On the left side, there are 1 sodium atom and 2 oxygen atoms on the right, so I will write S equals 1 and O equals 2 under the right side. Since the number of atoms in each element isn't identical on both sides, the equation is not balanced. To balance the equation, I will need to add coefficients to change the number of atoms on one side to match the other for the equation S8 plus O2 equals SO2. I would add coefficient 8 before SO2 so that there are 8 sodium atoms on each side of the equation, like S8 plus O2 equals 8 SO2. However, subscripts cannot be changed and are always multiplied by the coefficient, which means there are now 16 oxygen atoms on the right side of the equation and only 2 oxygen atoms on the left side. To balance this, I will add a coefficient 8 before O2 under the left side, so there are 16 oxygen atoms on each side, like S8 plus 8O2 equals 8SO2. So the number of atoms in each element is the same on both sides of the equation, so it is now balanced. Remember that if there is no coefficient in front of an element, it is assumed that the coefficient is 1. For the equation FeO plus BdF2 equals FeF2 plus BdO, there are 1 iron atom and 1 oxygen atom being added to palladium atom and 2 fluorine atoms, so I will list them under this side, so Fe equals 1, O equals 1, Pd equals 1, and F equals 2. There are 1 iron atom, 2 fluorine atoms that are being added to 1 palladium atom and 1 oxygen atom. So Fe equals 1, O equals 1, Pd equals 1, F equals 2. Since the number of atoms in each element is the same on both sides of the equation, this is already balanced. For the equation P4 plus Br2 equals PbR3, there are 4 phosphorus atoms being added to 2 bromine atoms, therefore P equals 4, Br equals 2. Under the left side, there are 1 phosphorus atom and 3 bromine atoms, so P equals 1, Br equals 3. To balance the equation, I would add coefficient 4 before PbR3 so that there are 4 phosphorus atoms on each side of the equation, like P4 plus Br2 equals 4 PbR3. However, subscripts cannot be changed and are always multiplied by the coefficient, which means there are now 12 bromine atoms on the right side of the equation and only 2 bromine atoms under the left side. And to balance this, I would add the coefficient 6 before Br2 under the left side, so there are now 12 bromine atoms on each side, because if we multiply the 6 by 2, it is equal to 12. So the number of atoms in each element is the same on both sides of the equation, so it is now balanced. For the equation CaF2 plus Li2SO4 equals CaSO4 plus LiF, there are 1 calcium atom and 2 fluorine atoms being added to 2 lithium atoms, 1 sodium atom, and 4 oxygen atoms, so I will list them under this: Ca equals 1, F equals 2, Li equals 2, S equals 1, O equals 4. There are 1 calcium atom, also 1 sodium atom, and 4 oxygen atoms being added to 1 lithium and 1 fluorine atom, so Ca equals 1, F equals 1, Li equals 1, S equals 1, O equals 4 under the right side. To balance the equation, I will need to add coefficient 2 before LiF so that there are 2 lithium atoms and also 2 chlorine atoms under the right side of the equation. Since the number of atoms in each element is the same on both sides of the equation, so it is now balanced. With the equation AgNO3 plus Li equals LiNO3 plus Ag, there are 1 silver atom, also 1 nitrogen atom, and 3 oxygen atom being added to 1 lithium. I will list them on this side, so Ag equals 1, N equals 1, O equals 3, Li equals 1. There are 1 lithium atom, also 1 nitrogen atom, and 3 oxygen atoms being added to 1 silver atom, so Ag equals 1, N equals 1, O equals 3, Li equals 1. Since the number of atoms in each element is the same on both sides of the equation, it is already balanced. For the equation LiCl plus Br2 equals LiBr plus Cl2, there are 1 lithium and 1 chlorine atom being added to 2 bromine left. Therefore, Li equals 1, Cl equals 1, Br equals 2. There are 1 lithium atom and also 1 bromine atom and 2 chlorine atoms, so I would write Li equals 1, Cl equals 2, Br equals 1 under the right side. To balance the equation, I will need to add coefficient 2 so that there are 2 lithium atoms on each side of the equation. However, subscripts cannot be changed and will always multiply by the coefficient, which means there are now 2 bromine atoms on the right side of the equation, but also 2 chlorine atoms under the left side of the equation as we multiply the coefficient 2 by 1 chlorine atom. So the number of atoms in each element is the same on both sides of the equation, so it is now balanced.